Alright, let's talk about Pomeranians. You ever see one of these little fluff balls walking down the street? They look like they should be running a small business out of a luxury penthouse, wearing tiny sunglasses and yelling into an even tinier Bluetooth headset. They have the energy of a CEO but the size of a decorative pillow. And people love them. You know why? Because they're adorable. They've got the big eyes, the endless fur, and that confident little prance that says, "Yeah, I run this place." But here's the thing. These tiny dogs, they weren't always this small. Oh no. People look at a Pomeranian today and think, "Ah, that's a lap dog." But back in the day, these dogs had jobs. They had responsibilities. They were working-class dogs before they got promoted to royalty and decided labor was beneath them. The sled dog days. Believe it or not, Pomeranians are descendants of sled dogs. Yeah, you heard that right. These dogs used to pull sleds. Sleds. Can you imagine that? Tiny little Pomeranians harnessed together, trying to drag a Viking across the ice? Back then, they weren't the size of a grapefruit. They were bigger, about 30 to 40 pounds. Still not massive, but enough to actually do something useful. Now, I don't know who looked at those dogs and said, "You know what would make them better? If they were the size of a loaf of bread." But that's exactly what happened. And let's be honest, if you tried to get a modern Pomeranian to pull a sled today, you'd be waiting a long time. Not because they couldn't do it. Oh no, these dogs still have attitude. They just refuse. They look at you like, "Excuse me? You want me to do what? For free." The watchdog role. So, after they gave up the sled pulling business, people started using Pomeranians as watchdogs. Yes, watchdogs. I know what you're thinking. A Pomeranian? A guard dog? What's it gonna do? Aggressively shed on an intruder? But that's where you're wrong. See, Pomeranians don't need to be big to guard a house. They just need to be loud. And trust me, they have that covered. A Pomeranian will bark at anything. The mailman, the wind, a suspicious-looking leaf. They bark first, ask questions never. You ever been in a house with a Pomeranian when someone knocks on the door? It's chaos. Absolute chaos. That little dog turns into a full-blown alarm system on steroids. And it works. Because if you're a burglar and you hear that high-pitched, non-stop barking, you're not sticking around. Not because you're scared of the dog, but because you cannot deal with that noise. The royal glow-up. At some point, people decided they wanted a Pomeranian, but they didn't want the work part. You know, the sled pulling, the guarding, all the things that made them useful. So along came Queen Victoria, and this is where everything changed. Queen Victoria was a big fan of Pomeranians, and when a queen loves something, everybody else suddenly has to have one. But she didn't want a big Pomeranian. No, she wanted a tiny one. So breeders started shrinking them down. And just like that, Pomeranians went from being tough little working dogs to royalty. They became lapdogs. They went from pulling sleds to sitting on fancy couches, getting fed treats, and judging people. If you think about it, this is the ultimate career upgrade. It's like going from a factory job to being an influencer. One day you're out in the cold hauling supplies. The next day you're posing for paintings in a palace. Pomeranians figured out life. The companion dog era. Today, Pomeranians are mostly bred to be companions. Their only real job is to exist and look cute. And let me tell you, they take this responsibility very seriously. They follow you everywhere. You ever try to go to the bathroom with a Pomeranian in the house? Forget about privacy. That little dog is going to be right outside the door, barking like you've been kidnapped. And they expect constant attention. If you ignore a Pomeranian for too long, they will remind you. They'll bark, spin in circles, tap you with their little paws. Whatever it takes. They are demanding. Honestly, they're like tiny, furry toddlers who never grow up. You can't leave them alone for too long, or they get dramatic. You come back after running errands, and they act like you've been lost at sea for 5 years. "Oh my gosh, you're alive. I thought I'd never see you again. I wrote you a song while you were gone." The modern Pomeranian mindset. Even though they don't have real jobs anymore, Pomeranians still think they run things. They have no idea how small they are. They walk into a room like they own it. You ever see a Pomeranian approach a big dog? There's no fear, just confidence. It's like they don't know what a mirror is. They think they're massive. They think they're the boss. You ever pick up a Pomeranian? They don't even struggle. They just accept it, like royalty being carried in a carriage. "Yes, peasant, transport me to my next destination." And the attitude? Oh, they still have it. Just because they're small doesn't mean they won't put you in your place. If you take too long to feed a Pomeranian, they will stare you down. They will judge you with their tiny little eyes like, Do you not value my presence? Because this is unacceptable. Final thoughts. So, what were Pomeranians bred for? A lot. Actually, they started as sled dogs, then became watchdogs, then somehow ended up as royal lapdogs living the high life. They've had one of the biggest career glow-ups in history. Imagine if your great-great-grandfather was a warrior, and now you're just out here making TikTok videos. That's the Pomeranian experience. But at the end of the day, they don't need a job anymore. Their whole purpose now is to be fluffy, entertaining, and slightly dramatic. And you know what? They're doing great at it.